Hello everyone. Welcome to the next training of SAP New GL Accounting. Today's topic for training is document splitting. Document splitting concept. New General Ledger in SAP offers a powerful feature known as document splitting. That's what we will be doing today. With document splitting, accounting line items are split according to specific characteristics. For example, profit center, segment, it can be a business area. If you talk about more on the document splitting part, document splitting as said is a unique feature of new GL accounting approach that enables the preparation of financial statements and the various other reports which is needed by the management on the basis of various characteristics like profit center, business area, or segment wise reporting. Document splitting one of the key ways to streamline your financial reports and the various day-to-day financial reporting part. The document splitting functionality in NewGL performs automatic splitting in real time. So you can use document splitting procedure to split up the line items for selected dimensions. Those dimensions could be also termed as characteristics. That means you can split your line items on the basis of business area, on the basis of profit center or segment, or even to affect a zero balance setting in the document as well. The zero balance setting basically refers to that the debit should be equal to the credit part. So using a document splitting procedure is a prerequisite to have a complete financial statements for different dimensions at any time. So if your management wants the financial reports on the basis of different dimensions or characteristics, you need to have document splitting in the system. And this is one of the major feature of new GL accounting. So there are different types of document splitting. One is passive splitting, which is used especially during clearing the transactions. For example, payment transaction. Like when we make a vendor payment, the vendor payment always clears the vendor invoice which is already outstanding in the SAP system. So what it does, it clears those invoices against those payment as well, and in those cases those invoices will not be represented on the vendor ledger as outstanding. So the passive splitting is used for clearing the transactions. You have to note that you cannot change the settings for the passive splitting. It is something which is predefined into the system as a standard functionality by SAP. So passive splitting is there to stay. You cannot do anything, any changes in it. Second is active splitting. Active splitting is known as rule-based splitting. In this, the system splits the document on the basis of predefined splitting rules which has been provided by SAP. So SAP is already have the predefined with SAP is already pre-delivered with many predefined rules for active splitting, and it is always suggested to use these various predefined splitting rules for all the different results, and in most cases it always are apt for the business. If standard setting is still, the rules which are there in SAP for active splitting are still sometimes in some circumstances are not sufficient, or you need to enhance those functionality of the rules, then in those cases you need to go and you have to create your own setting rules. So that is something which you can do when you have got the understanding of what are the different rules in the SAP system, how they have been functioning, and then only you can go and you can have your own rules defined. The third splitting is zero balancing splitting. It ensures not only the document is zero balanced, but also balanced for the characteristics as well. So in this case, the system creates clearing lines automatically to achieve a split. You can define the characteristics which should be used for zero balancing. And the characteristics are always there. They are basically three. One is business area, second is profit center, third is segment. Before posting the document, the system always checks whether the balance of those characteristics are equal to zero or not. Equal to zero refers to that the balances of the debit side should always be equal to the credit side on the basis of the characteristics. That means if a particular profit center A is debited with an X amount, the similarly A profit center has to be credited with X amount on the credit side as well. So that is what zero balancing is all about. But if you doesn't have those X amount debit and credit are not matched to each other on the basis of profit center A, the system will automatically create that zero balancing with a zero balancing clearing account. So that will be looking after how it has been done. So SAP delivers a set of standard rules in these different types of splittings that should usually prove sufficient in any case. But if in case in the worst case scenario you want, in that case you can define your own set of rules and adapt those according to your needs. But for that you must have to understand what are the different standard splitting rules already active in the SAP system. So this is about the document splitting. We'll see in detail what and how these different document splitting configuration is done within the SAP system. So let's take an example for you. As you can see on the screen, there is a diagram. On your left hand side you can see there is a vendor invoice. This is just to show you one of the example of splitting, how it has been done. And if you look into it, there are two different expenses with an amount of 400 and 600, whereas the payable is only one with 1000. But the profit center, if you check, there is two different profit center, PC01 and PC02. So what the system does, in case of PC01 and PC02 is 400 and 600, that means 40% and 60% of the total 1000 payables. So what the system does, when you do such kind of entries, system automatically breaks or splits the line item. So how it splits? It splits this payable part, as you can see on the right hand side, to two parts on the basis of the characteristics, that is the profit center. So what it did is it split those 1000 amount over here as 40% for PC01 profit center and 60% for PC02 profit center, and it made a new splitting entry, that is the payable being divided into two parts, 400 and 600. So this is how the enrichment is done. The advancement has been done on the functionality. And once this has been done, in that case you will be able to get the proper financial reports on the basis of these profit centers or the segments, you can say. So that is what the basic concept of this is. So this is what you have to understand the splitting is all about. It splits the profit centers or the various characteristics as per the proportionate, and it posts a proper entry so that it can give you a proper financial reports when needed. So this was document splitting. Now moving on to the configuration steps for document splitting. As on your screen, there are various configuration steps which you need to do so that your particular transactions are splitted correctly into the SAP system. So the configuration steps on the screen are: first, classify GL account for document splitting. Second, classify document type for document splitting. Third, define zero balance clearing account. Fourth, define document splitting characteristics for general ledger accounting. Fifth, define document splitting characteristics for controlling. Then sixth is activating document splitting, and at last extended document splitting. So we'll carry with each of these steps within the SAP system. We'll see how practically these steps are being done and configured in the system. So let's move on with the first configure step, that is classify GL accounts for document splitting. So as this is the first step in the configuring document splitting, this is to assign the item categories to the GL accounts for the chart of account. So the configuration which have been done over here, these configurations are done at the client level. These all different configurations of is been done. Some of them are done at client level, few of them are done at the company code level. So what we are going to do is will be done at the chart of account level. That is why we have referred that it is used to assign the item categories to the GL account for chart of accounts. Instead of assigning the item categories by individual account, it is recommended that you use a range of accounts. Note that the splitting rules are defined for item categories, and item categories are predefined in the SAP system. So each business transaction that is entered is analyzed during the document splitting procedure, and what the system does is it determines each line item from the transaction, and it has to decide whether it is an item that remain unchanged or an item that should be split. So that has been something decided by the item categories. Basically, item categories is the grouping of the GL accounts. Like item category decide that that particular GL or the particular line item which consists of the GL will go to an expense account part or will go to a revenue account part. So which part of the financial statement will that be taken up as? So that is something which is decided by the item categories. That is why we need to determine the various item categories in the SAP system, and we need to assign those to the account numbers, which are basically in the account number groups. The item categories, as said, are predefined in the system. You cannot define any additional items or item categories in the SAP system. What is there, that it is, and that is what you are supposed to use. You cannot define your own. So let's move on to the SAP screen and see how we can classify the different GL accounts for document splitting. So the path is already there on the screen to you. You need to go to the SPRO transaction code, then you need to go to the IMG screen, and then financial accounting new to general ledger accounting new, then to business transactions, document splitting, then classify GL accounts for document splitting. So let's see how we can move on to this part. We need to execute the transaction code SPRO, enter. Now it will take you to the SAP reference IMG screen. So now we can click on to the SAP reference IMG, which will take you to the IMG guide, that is the implementation guide display. Now in this we can follow the path. We first need to go to the financial accounting new, and then general ledger accounting new, then the business transaction and document splitting. So let's see on the path. Financial accounting new, we can expand the options over here, and once you go to now the general ledger accounting new, and you can find the option to expand it, and once we expand further to it, now we need to go to business transactions, expand, and then we find the document splitting. So the path is very simple. You need to go to the financial accounting new, to general ledger accounting new, and then to business transaction, and then we are at the document splitting. Now if you expand this, you will find all the configuration steps that we just show at a while back. Those all the steps are over here as on the screen. So now we'll be moving up with the first step, that is within the SAP system, classify GL accounts for document splitting. Now we can go and click onto the symbol over here, or you can say execute it. So I click onto it, and it will take you to the next screen, and it asks you for the chart of account. So you need to put your chart of account over here. Suppose mine is 1000. Now we can go and enter on the screen. So once you enter, it will take you to the next screen. So now you can see the screen on the system that there is no entries found that match any of the selection criteria. So what you need to do is you need to define the various GL account numbers over here, and you need to define the item categories against them so as to decide how the document needs to be splitted for various splitting rules to be followed. So let's go, and we need to click onto the new entries. So now before that, you need to go and decide what are these account from and to. So this account number which you need to take up over here basically comes up from the account group which we define at the chart of account level. So if you have done, or if you have followed the general ledger accounting training session which we had done earlier, and in that you will find the various account group how we can create. Just to have a look of that, you can go and you can check all the account groups which are there for the chart of account 1000. So you need to go and open a new session for it. Let's open it up, and now you can go and you can check the account group. The transaction code for that is OBD4. Enter, and you will find that these were the different account groups which were been defined. And you can see over here the chart of account is 1000, and the different account group are there. You can see the from an account to part. These from account to account it belongs to your asset account number group. Then similarly the second one belongs to your expenses, which has the GL number series starting with 4, relates to expenses. Then the series 3 represents to income, and then the 2 represents to liabilities. So these are the 4 different account groups been defined. You can have 4, or even you can have 40 by dividing these 4 into 40 parts. So it's up to you how many groups you want to decide. You can divide your asset part to your fixed asset, current asset, non-current assets. You can have a separate for customer, you can have separate for cash, you can have separate for bank GLs. Similarly, you can divide again the income part as sales as a different part, and the other incomes could be of a different part. So it's up to you how you want to break up those further parts. what we did is basically we divided the balance sheet is as assets and liabilities, and then we divided the income statement as income and expenses. Simple. If you want, you can further divide it to as many groups you want to create. So over here we need to take these different from and to account number from over here, and that is what we need to take up onto the next screen to classify the GL account. So what we can do is we can copy these GL's number group, Control V, and then take the cursor to it and drag it with selection to wherever we want to take it to. So I'm copying it, Control C, and then I can go to my configuration screen, and now I can go to new entries, and once I click onto the new entries you will find the various options available to me, and over here at account from I can paste all the GL number that is it on the screen. So now we can define the item category to these. The first one starting with 1 5 times 0 to 1 99999 belongs to your asset part, which we already saw on the account group, as you can see. So that is what we can take up over here, and let's see the categories, the different categories it has. You can go to have the list of the categories as you can see on the screen. So you can find the different categories on the screen to you, and in that, now this particular asset basically belongs to balance sheet account, so I would be taking the balance sheet category over here because I cannot divide the whole group into different assets so that I can divide it to asset and customers and cash and bank. Not possible. If you want, we can break it down and then we can do that. So now I am taking balance sheet item, balance sheet account over here as a first category. The second one starting with 4 belongs to your expenses, and for expenses again we can have the list and we can see is there any expenses category, and we can take that. So you can see over here on the screen there is an expense category to it, and that is what been selected. Similarly you can go to the 3 series 3 5 times 0 to 3 99999, and again for that we can have a category. So we can select again from the list, and you can see over here there is a revenue category also. So we can double click and we can select that category, and then the last one is left, that is for liabilities. So for liabilities again we can take the balance sheet because again the assets and the liabilities basically represents the balance sheet account. So taking the item category as balance sheet. So we have taken all the categories with respect to the account number group, and it is always better to have the whole group taken as an and the category to be assigned to it, otherwise the list will be too huge and too long to define separately. So once we have done this category item category assignment to the account numbers, now the second thing is you can see on the column third there is an option of overriding. So this particular step refers to basically if you checkbox this, if you select this checkbox, this will override the item categories. So if you want your particular account number or account number group to be ridden by the category, then in that case you can select this checkbox which will override the item categories which has been assigned to the account number. So that is about the override part, and that is it. Now you can enter on the screen, and once you enter you will find that the different account number groups has got their respective item categories descriptions as well. So this is how you need to assign the GL account numbers to the item category part. So once this has been done, we can go and we can save this screen, and the configurations will be taken up in the request number. And now we can click on to continue. So the data was saved and we are done with the first configuration step. Now we can go back with the back step, one step more, and now we are back to the same path. So we have covered the first configuration step and now we'll move to the second one. So now the second configuration step is to classify document types for document splitting. This is to ensure that every relevant financial transaction is considered for document splitting. Categorize the document types according to specific business transaction variants. Then assign the business transaction and the business transaction variant for the document type. Standard SAP document types are already defined with appropriate values, so there is no need to create any customized document type, as there are a lot of standard SAP document types defined, provided, and they are sufficient enough to be used for any of the client. So what is basically a document type? A document type is basically a two character type which basically is used to categorize the different business transactions on the basis of the different nature of transactions. Like for a vendor invoice there's a different document type, then for vendor payment there's a different document type. Similarly, for different nature of transactions like asset purchased, asset retired, depreciation on asset, customer invoices, customer payment, credit memo. Similarly, for different other documents like banking or for cash transactions, the different nature of transactions or business transaction has got their different document types, and that is what basically defines document type. So it's basically have the uh, two character alphanumeric. It could be alphabetical as well, but the standard provided document type are always alphabetical. You will never find any of them as alphanumeric or numeric. So moving on, every business transaction that is entered is analyzed during the document splitting process. In this process, the system determines which splitting rule to be applied to the document. In order that the system can determine the splitting rule, we have to assign a business transaction variant to each of the document type. And this business transaction variant helps in deciding the different business transactions, and accordingly the different document types are assigned to that particular transaction. So to ensure that a splitting rule is used appropriately, the relevant documents have to meet certain requirements. These requirements relate in particular to certain item categories that either must or must not be available. This information is specified for each business transaction variant and is checked against the documents during posting or at the time of posting. If the document does not meet these requirements, the system rejects the posting and it gives the error message. So this business transaction variant has got a key role to play for the document type, so as to help in deciding and ensuring that an appropriate splitting rule is being ensured or has been applied. With document type delivered in the standard SAP system, SAP delivers a classification for document splitting. So there are different document types used or already defined into the system, which helps in classifying each of the different business transactions. This classification is a proposal that you need to check against how many different document types are organized. So you'll find that for different business transactions there are different document types as already defined in the system. Even the item categories that are allowed for each accounting transactions are also defined, that we saw in the last config step while defining the item categories to the account number groups. So let's see how this works within the SAP system. We will not be configuring anything on this part because this is a by default provided standard SAP document types, so we don't need to define our own document types unless there is some different business processes and the business requirement. So let's see in the SAP system how we can move to it. So now moving on to the second step is classify document type for document splitting. You can go and you can click on to the symbol over here, and now once I clicked, you will find that in the second screen, the first column, you will find the different 2-character document types are on the screen. Each different document types have got their different descriptions. So you can see now for asset posting, for depreciation posting, for accounting document, for bank statement, for GRIR, for customer invoice, customer payment, customer document, customer recurring entries, customer credit memo, and similarly for vendors, different document types are defined. And against that, if you can see in the last column, you will find the name as a standard. So this is standard basically refers to that these are predefined by the SAP standard system to be used in at the client level, and it can be used by n number of different company codes in that particular client. If you come to this third and the fourth column now, these have the different transaction and the variant. If you go to the transaction and you click onto the F4 function 4 key on the keyboard, you will get the list of different transactions on the screen. So you can see now there are different transactions like the 0000 used for unspecified posting, 0100 used for transfer posting from PLL to balance sheet account, 200 for customer invoice, 300 for vendor invoice. So if you know that a particular document type is to be used for that particular transaction, in that case you can select that particular transaction from the screen. But if you're not sure, then in that case you should be using 0000 because that is something unspecified and can be used for all the remaining ones. So that is about the business transaction. If you go to the variant, again you can check the list of the variants. So you can find the list 0001 unspecified posting is standard and Z001 is unspecified posting standard. You must remember that any of the variant, any transaction, any such thing you will be finding starting with Z, that means it is not a standard, it has been customized by someone in the system. In this case, the variant 0001 is the standard provided SAP system, and there is only one variant provided, so you need to use always this particular variant in the system. So you don't need to do anything much. Whatever is there on the screen provided by SAP as a default, we would be using the same. We will not be making any changes in this particular configuration step. But you need to understand this well, because the understanding of this particular configuration step is very important. So this is just for understanding perspective we took this particular configuration step. Now if you want, you can define your own document type also over here, but it's recommended to use the standard one, and if once the standard is not fulfilling your purpose, then only you should go for a Z customization. So that is about the second configuration step, that is classifying document type for document splitting. So moving up to the next configuration step, that is define zero balance clearing account. In this, for account assignment objects, SAP have a zero balance setting. The system checks whether the balance of the account assignment object is zero after document splitting. If this is not the case, the system generates additional clearing items. Hence, in this activity, we have to create a clearing account for these additional clearing items. So this particular configuration steps refers to the one of the document splitting type, that was zero balancing, where the system checks for the line items to be equal to 0 with respect to the characteristics as well. And if they are not equal to 0, then an additional clearing account is being used for making them equal to 0 in the system. So before posting the document is checked if the balance of the characteristics like profit center is not 0 or is 0. If it is unbalanced, the additional clearing items are created if zero balancing is required for profit centers in the customizing setting of new GL. Therefore, clearing account is a must be determined in the customization setting too. So what we need to do in this particular configuration step is to create a zero balance clearing account, that is a GL account, and that particular GL account you need to assign it in the customization so that whenever the balances are not equal to 0, the system will automatically balance it with this particular GL. So before moving up for the configuration part, we first need to define a zero balance clearing ledger account into the SAP system, which will be assigned in the configuration then. So let's see how we can create the zero balance clearing account into the SAP system, what need to be maintained for that. So let's check the GL account with the transaction FS00, enter, and probably the GL must have already is defined, as you can see on the screen, and the same parameters you need to create your own GL account for zero clearing account. Now you can see over there on the screen that so we'll be creating this GL for the company code. Let's search the company code as well. So the company code is 1200, and this is the GL which we will be creating. If you enter on the screen, so the GL does not exist. Now let's create this GL in the SAP system. So what I am doing is I am copying it with another company code, as you can see. So the zero clearing account is over here. The GL number is 210000. The zero clearing account is always a liability, refers to the liability account group, where you need to select the balance sheet account, and then you need to put the short text and the long text description of the GL. Moving to the control data, you just need to maintain the over here, nothing has to be done over here. You don't have to select open item management, you neither have to select the line item management, because we do not need the line item display for this particular ledger. And then moving to the next is create bank. You need to select the field status group as G001, and then you can go and you can save this screen. and once you save, enter, and your GL has been defined. Now as you can see, the data is saved. So the GL number defined for zero clearing account is 210000. Now once we have defined the ledger account over here, we can go to the configuration step. Now as you can see, the path is there on the screen to you. We can go to this and we can define this particular GL for the general zero balancing clearing account. So let's move up with the SAP system now. SPRO to the path. So first we need to go to financial accounting new, then to the general ledger accounting new, now to business transactions, and then document splitting. So within it you can find the third configuration step is define zero balance clearing account. So going to the third configuration over here on the screen, define zero balance clearing account. We can go and we can execute this step as clicked. So now you can find on the screen that there is an account key with the posting keys already defined by the standard SAP system. Now if you want, you can create your own account key as well. You can copy this, select, then go to copy as. So once selected, then only you can copy it. Clicked on copy, and now you can see over here that it has been copied, and you can name it, and you can change your account key to suppose 001. So this is how you can copy one account key and you create your own account key as well. Enter again, and as you will enter twice, you will find that there is a screen coming up onto you. Entry one of the entries to be copied as dependent entries, then you can go to copy all, and everything will be copied to it. Now OK, enter, and you can see now the number of entries copied is 1. So your entry has been copied. Now you can select your entry, the account key, and go to the left hand side and double click onto this folder accounts. So once you double click onto accounts, it will take you to input your chart of account. So your chart of account you need to put in, that is 1000 for my. Enter, and as you entered, it will take you to the next screen, and in this screen now, so in most of the cases you will find this entry over here is blank. So what you need to do is you need to go to the new entries, click on to new entries, and assign your GL over here. So once you assign your GL 210000, you have to take care that the GL number should be the one which is zero balance clearing account. That is what need to be assigned, and this GL is something which will be used for balancing your debit credit on the basis of characteristics, so that the debit should be equal to credit, or you can say the zero balancing finally. So that is in this part. If you enter on the screen, you can find the short text of the GL description, that is the GL clearing account has been taken up. So once you have done this, you can go and you can save the screen, and this particular configuration will get assigned to the GL zero balance clearing account. So now click on to the save option. So as we can see, the data has been saved. So that is what you need to do. You can go back now, back, click on to the back option once again, and it will take you to the SPRO IMG screen path. So this is how you would be doing your configuration for defining zero balance clearing account. Again, this is one of the important configuration step, because for having your accounting and financial reports, as we know that there is a dual effect concept in accounting, that wherever there is anything is debited, the same amount will get credited somewhere as well. So following the dual entry accounting norms, we need to assign one zero balancing clearing account, so that it will keep balancing the debit and the credit, whether it is a normal entry or whether it has a characteristics like profit center or business area. Even those will be balanced, and in that case it will provide you an appropriate financial reports for the management and for the various legal perspective. So that is all about the zero balancing clearing account configuration. Now we'll move to the next configuration step, that is document splitting characteristics for GL accounting. Another important configuration step. So in this we define the characteristics for which the document splitting rules apply. Additionally, specify if you want to use zero balancing, indicate if this characteristics is mandatory. So if we talk about this configuration, in this particular configuration step we specify for which characteristics you want to perform document splitting in general ledger accounting. So you need to decide what will be the different characteristics on the basis of which the management will be looking for different financial reports. Like there could be business area, there could be profit center, which will be used for various reporting perspective into the business. You can define the following, like first, whether you want to apply a zero balancing setting for characteristics as well, whether you want to use a partner field to a document which will be a sender as well as the receiver relationship in clearing lines generated additionally into the document, whether you want the characteristics to be a required field, that means a mandatory field. In various business scenarios we find that the business area or the profit center is always made as a mandatory characteristics, and whatever the business transactions we punch into the SAP system, this particular characteristics has to be mandatory so that you can have your financial statements even on the balance on the basis of these different characteristics like profit center or business area. So how you can decide, that is a client call. You need to interact, you need to discuss it with the client how they would be looking the various reports in the future from the SAP system, but how you can configure that in the SAP system, that is what we will be looking up over here. So again the path is there on the screen to you, the same path, just following to the next configuration step. Next to define zero balancing clearing account is define document splitting characteristics for general ledger accounting. So if you move on to this particular configuration step and we go to execute this transaction now, it will take you to the next screen and you can find on the screen document splitting characteristics for general ledger. So there are basically three characteristics. One is business area, another is profit center, and then there is segment. These are basically the three characteristics which has been used in 95% cases of the implementation or wherever the SAP has been implemented. Now you need to decide whether these different characteristics need a zero balance or not. If you feel that, or if the client needs business area wise reporting like financial statements and so the various reports, it has always been preferred to have zero balance. So whether if you are using any of these characteristics, they should be a zero balance should also be checked in them so that you will get the proper trial balance and the proper your financial statements for that particular on the characteristics part. So these are the three different business area, profit center and segment are the characteristics. If you want the zero balance to be activated, you can select this checkbox, and if you select it, the zero balance will become applicable onto the profit center. That means if you debit a line item with profit center A and you credit with a blank profit center, the system will automatically create a splitting line with credit profit center A with that particular zero balancing ledger account. So what the system does is it 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 always create an extra splitting line so as to balance the other splitting on the basis of the profit center. So that is what will be done in this case. And if you want this particular characteristics to be mandatory into the SAP system, so that if anyone does any transaction, these particular fields or characteristics will become mandatory for the transaction. So you can select those options. Now again, it is recommended that if you are using any of these characteristics, you should have the zero balance option, as at the same time you should also have the particular field to be a mandatory field. So that is what you are supposed to do over here in this case. Suppose I select profit center as zero balancing and I take profit center as mandatory field as well. So that is what you need to do. And then once you have decided the characteristics and the fields, you can go and you can save the screen over here and continue. And this again, are you sure that you want to save the changes? Yes. And now it will be taken up to the request, so that is again been entered. Okay. And this is how you have defined your different characteristics for the company. And mind it, this particular configuration of defining characteristics is always done at the client level. So once you do it thinking for your company code, it will become applicable for all the company code within that particular client. You cannot customize the characteristics for one particular company code at all. If you do this, it will be done at the client level. So that is about this particular configuration of document splitting characteristics for GL accounting. So now moving up to the next configuration step is define document splitting characteristics for controlling. The additional characteristics in this are not relevant for general ledger accounting. Instead, they are relevant for other application components such as subcomponents in controlling, then that use the document transferred from general ledger accounting. So basically this specify on which additional characteristics you intend to apply the document splitting. This particular configuration is not being used as of in the new general ledger accounting part, because this is not related to your GL accounting. This basically refers to the controlling part, where on the basis of different characteristics you want to split the document within the controlling module. So this particular configuration has nothing to do with the financial accounting part. This configuration is a very rarely used in any of the clients. What is basically used is the characteristics in the general ledger accounting, but the characteristics for controlling is not used. But yet, just to give you an overview, let's move on to the SAP screen and have a look to this define document splitting characteristics for controlling. So what are the different characteristics which you can have for splitting in controlling? We will look to that. So the path is there on the screen to you, the same path, there is no change into it. Now let's move on to the SPRO, SAP reference IMG, financial accounting, then general ledger accounting, business transactions, and document splitting. So the very next step to define splitting characteristics for general ledger accounting is define document splitting characteristics for controlling. If you go and execute this particular configuration step, you can see there are two different fields already on the screen to you. One is order and the second is cost center. So similarly, you can add further characteristics in this particular controlling part. If you go and check this drop down options over here, you will find number of different characteristics which can be added for document splitting in controlling part, that is cost center, cost object, there is distribution channel, location, order refers to internal order. So these are various different kind of characteristics in controlling part, but this is not used anywhere as of now. I have not seen anywhere anyone been using document splitting characteristics for controlling module. So we'll not be doing this. This is just an optional configuration which is a very rare required, is not demanded as of now anywhere in the any of the clients. So this is just to give you an overview. Moving to the next now, next configuration is activate document splitting. So this particular step is done once you complete all the configuration steps related to the document splitting, that which we have already covered in the beginning till now in the today's training session. So in this activity we have to activate the document splitting. Once activated, the document splitting becomes active at the client level. So let's see how we can activate the document splitting within the system. The path is there on the screen to you, the same path, and in the same path you will go down to, you will find that there is an option of activate document splitting. Now if you go and execute this step, it shows you the screen change view activate document splitting details. In this step, the document splitting gets activated. As you can see, you need to select this checkbox. So if it is not selected, you need to select this checkbox document splitting, and then you have to save the screen and your document splitting gets activated. Again, next to that is the method. The method refers to the splitting method, which is a SAP standard one defined already in the system, which contains the splitting rules for different business transactions that we have covered earlier. If you talk about each of these different fields, you need to select the document splitting part over here. This is the splitting method 12, which is by default assigned in the system as a standard one, and this is what you will always get as a default already assigned in the system. You cannot change the method. Moving to the next below to that is level of details. Now it has got one inheritance. Inheritance means that when you create a customer invoice from a revenue line, for example, the entities such as business area or segments are projected inherited to the customer, and text lines in the general ledger view. So it is suggested to that you should have a check to that inheritance as well. Then next is standard account assignment. It can be used to replace all account assignments that could not be derived from the posting with a constant value on the other side. So we don't need this particular part. Moving, so as we have checked that you need to select this splitting document splitting checkbox. The next is your method, that is 12 is the standard splitting method provided by SAP, and then you need to select the inheritance, and once this has been done you can move on and you can save this screen. So once selected, your document splitting gets activated. Now the activation which applies to the entire client, you can explicitly exclude your company code from document splitting. This means, however, that you are then no longer able to create any cross company code transactions containing the company code that have divergent settings for document splitting. So how now, suppose this is the screen, you have activated the document splitting, and now you want to deactivate the splitting. So to deactivate, again, to deactivate you need to go to the same step, and this has been activated at the client level. Now what you can do, you cannot deactivate, but you can deactivate your company code from document splitting. For that you need to go to the left hand side, the folder deactivation per company code. If you double click onto this, and you will find a different company codes on the screen, and on the other side you will find inactive checkbox. So if you want to deactivate any of the company code so that it will not be liable for document splitting, you can simply go and you can select the checkbox and save this screen. So this is something which, however, you should not go for. Deactivating a company code means a lot of consequences into the SAP system. If you deactivate the document splitting in a live system, in a production system, it can upset the whole system, the whole SAP system. So it is always suggested not to deactivate the document splitting. It should be better to avoid as much as it can be. So this is about the activation of document splitting part. Now once we have done this, we have activated the document splitting. So you have to take care that all the configuration steps above on the screen have already been covered, and then only at the last you can go and you can activate the document splitting. So that is about the whole configuration of document splitting part. Now the next one of the step is extended document splitting. Now if the splitting method does not meet the requirements, then one can first define and then select their own method by customizing for document splitting. So in case of extended document splitting, you can make settings for document splitting when the SAP delivered functions are not sufficient for your client needs and you want to make changes or enhancements to it. You do this, you create your own set of rules appropriate to your needs and make the necessary settings so that the system applies the rules you defined and not the SAP standard rules. So if you want to create your own rules, means defining your own splitting rules, defining your own splitting methods, is something which can be very complicated. But if you want to go for it because probably the splitting rules are not been fulfilling the client requirement or some of the extreme cases, it is always suggested that do have a full understanding of the splitting rule, how it works within the splitting document splitting part, and then only go for customizing your own splitting rules within the SAP system. So there is a tip for you. If you are creating your own document splitting rule, it is strongly recommended to review the existing rules carefully first and then go for customizing your own splitting rules. Another important note for you is, please note that the configurations which we have just covered today, that is the document splitting configurations, are sensitive and utmost care should be taken for this, because once you do this configuration, this becomes applicable for the whole client. So this will have a consequences impact on all your different company codes within that client. So, and even once it has been done, you should not go for changing it again and again, and especially when you are in a live system, you should never try to do that. That could be a blunder if you go and do the changes on those parts. So that is about it. If you go for the extended document splitting, you can find it over here below the activate document splitting part, and it has got number of different options within it if you expand. So within extended document splitting, you can define your own splitting method, you can define your splitting rules, then you have to assign your splitting method to the rules, you can define your own business transactions variant. So means it basically means customizing the whole document splitting as per your requirement. So this is something which can only be done once you have got good amount of understanding about the document splitting. Without that, it's very typical for going to the customizing your own splitting methods and rules. So this is all about the document splitting which we have covered today. You can go through this very carefully. These are the very sensitive configurations in the new GL accounting, and these have got their different impacts once you move on to the system and do the transactions. So go through this, study, configure these different configuration steps, and have a better understanding of this. So we'll see you in the next training session with a new topic. Till then, thank you. Have a nice day.